be welcoming to this stage our keynote address by John Ballinger. We will be talking about how leadership and mental health converge. John will share some possible answers to the questions that have been coming up in the room today and the previous day. John is the president of First Lead U. Hopefully you've been able to visit him outside, and the HEAL conference sponsor. John, please join us in welcoming our next speaker.
For those in the room, please raise your hand as high as you can. Please raise your hand as high as you can. We've got some of those that are not participating. Tina, raise your hand. Raise your hand. Now raise it just a little bit more. Oh! All right, you can put it down. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to stretch your brains just a little bit. Like you did that, I'm going to stretch your brain a little bit because there's always a little bit more. There's always a little bit more. So just remember that. So is there a correlation between mental health and leadership? I say yes. I looked at him. He looked at me. He looked down at my boots. I looked down at my boots, and that drill sergeant came running after me screaming, "Get down and make that concrete grow grass." Ladies and gentlemen, that was the beginning of my leadership journey. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to tell you the Paul Harvey rest of the story. Mental health and mental illness. We've heard a lot about things in this conference about mental health, mental illness. I sometimes say that we converge the words health insurance and health care. Guess what? They're two totally different things. And so is mental health and mental illness. And we need to be talking about the two different sets of words. Mental health is a state of emotional, mental, and social well-being. Mental illness have disorders. Some of those could be chemical imbalances. It could be mood disorders, anxiety. Conrad talked about the elephant. There are a lot of people that are born with elephants. Good mental health is a component of overall well-being. It can influence and be influenced by physical health. A health condition, this is mental illness, a health condition involving changes in emotion, thinking, or behavior. One of the things that I learned early on in my military career, and I spent 21 years there, is that emotional intelligence is not something that we talk about on the civilian side a lot. But we talk a ton about it in the military. When I went to SEER school is a search, escape, and evasion school. I was a pilot, and when they put you in a box that's 4x4. They capture you, put you in this box that's 4x4, and put snakes in that box. It just so happens the snakes are in a bag that's on your head. The next day, they put rats in that bag and put it on your head. You really learn a lot about yourself when you got rats and snakes rolling around your head. You learn a lot about emotional intelligence. It's the capacity to be aware, control, express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. Key word, judiciously and empathetically. I have not interacted a lot with this group while I've been here intentionally. I'm a reader. I'm a people reader. It's just a talent. I didn't even know I had it till I was in the military. I can read somebody's gait, how their hand motions are, how they carry themselves, and it tells me a lot about their emotional stability or instability. So how does mental health and leadership converge? So I was blessed going in the military to my very first, what's called MOS, military occupational skill, to work on aircraft engines. Aircraft engines in a helicopter are very complicated because a helicopter actually has to have lift and thrust, where a jet just does this. A helicopter engine turns 21,000 RPMs. So think about the next time you're driving in your car and you see the RPM at 2,000 RPMs. Think about that engine. Think about your brain sometimes running 21,000 RPMs. Because it does. There are people in this room that I have observed that their brains run 21,000 RPMs. Now, when that helicopter gets through using all the power that engine's making at the rotor to fly, it's only 256 RPMs. Think about the power it takes to move that helicopter forward till it gets to that engine. What you do with emotional intelligence is as that brain's doing all it does, is learn how to control it to where you're always making forward progress with emotional intelligence. So I learned doing military aviation maintenance of this term called root cause analysis. Again, I come out after 21 years. I'm starting a risk management company. It was the first company I started. I'm like, where's Rebecca at? Rebecca's not in here. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I own 4 businesses, partner in 2 businesses, and help manage 5 other businesses. Now, you're going to learn that everybody in here has a capacity to do more than they do. Their brain's what locks it down. So the root cause analysis, you identify the source of the problem. You get to the root level. You look beyond the symptoms. See, in society, in some of the room, I've heard these. I just heard like, we do this and we do this and we do this. But are you looking past, beyond the root of the symptom and actually coming up with a solution that's practical enough to go all the way down to the lowest common denominator in society to start changing? So in the military, I decided I wanted to go to officer school. And to go to officer school, you had to have a college education because I went in and enlisted. And so I decided to take psychology because I wanted to know, how do I lead my team to bombs and bullets? I mean, that's kind of strange if you think about it. Like, you're asking people, follow me, and you may get killed over there. So my emphasis was behavioral science. And back when I'm going to date myself, the professors give you your term paper topic. You didn't get to choose it. And so he came to me and he said, I want you to tell me, are leaders born or taught? That was the chicken or the egg question. So I studied, and I studied, and I studied, and I came up with the determination that there are natural born leaders. And then there are people that are born to be taught to lead. And I'm here to tell you today that natural born leaders and people in leadership positions are failing the people that are born to be taught to lead. Middle management in America is at the worst it's ever been in history that I can see, and it's because of what you're getting ready to see was really the thesis of my paper. Oh, went the wrong way. So I put a number to these, and my esteemed partner, Douglas Ford, said, you can't give people that are leaders the 1 category. You got to give them the L's. He said, so they're going to be leaders because you categorize people. They still kind of rubs them wrong a little bit. So the percentage of people born or in leadership positions in the world, these are world figures, are 1 to 5%. People educated to lead, the E's, 5 to 10%. The A's, agreeable followers, 90%. In this room, there are some L's, some E's, and some A's. But over time, because the ones, Douglas, don't shoot me, because the ones didn't do what they needed to do for the twos couldn't lead to threes, and the Great Resignation created this fourth category called the disenfranchised, disengaged, disinterested, distrusting. And all the statistics show us that's 83% of that 90%. Shame on us as leaders. I mean, really. So when I go into companies now that are completely out of balance, most of the time when I do an assessment on the leadership, 50+% of the people in a leadership position have no business being in that position. And the owner wants to know why the company's out of balance. Why am I stressed? Why are sales down? Why are customer complaints? I'm like, well, your team isn't, one, the team that you need. Two, it doesn't function as a team. Three, yeah, you're going to be stressed out, but really who you've got to blame is yourself, Mr. Owner, Mr. Executive, Mr. CEO, because you didn't build your team. Now, through society, and this really started coming out in the 60s and 70s. I'm a data nerd. Here's what the ones started saying. I don't have time to teach people. I'm just going to do it myself because I know it's going to get done right. What they did is they damaged not only the people that were there to learn how to lead, they damaged the threes and turned those into fours. Because they said, I don't have time to. Well, guess what? I'm going to tell you as a leader, if you put yourself in that position or you are in that position, take the time. Because not taking the time to teach those that are behind you to step into your position makes your life worse. It's going to give you poor mental health and can even create mental illness. So when you see the ones don't do the twos, then the twos can't do the threes, the ones actually create the fours because it really jumps the twos and the threes. Because it's the responsibility of the leader to lead everyone well. So all this really surfaced with two letters, and these are two sets of letters that we're going to hear about these 20 years from now. BCAC, before COVID, after COVID. You're going to hear about it because I hear about it all the time. Executives and business owners will say, well, before COVID, and I'm going to say, stop it. You can't even talk about it anymore. We're going to talk about AC, and that's not electrical. By the way, for you, this is after COVID. Because the dynamics of society changed. It just did. And what happened is that 83% of disenfranchised, distrusting people said no more. You're not going to use us. You're not going to abuse us. You're not going to put a saddle on our back. You're not going to ride us. You're not going to make us work 8 hours. No. No more. This is what you got. That's what you have right now. And they really are saying help. People in the threes position, and yeah, think about that. This is what happened when leaders aren't true leaders. They do what I call the hammer and nails. Everything is a nail, and they're the hammer, and they just beat it. That's what they do. If you're in a leadership position after COVID, you need to own humility. You need to own empathy. You need to own grace. You need to own patience. You need to own serving. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't want to own serving your people, you need to go be a 3 or a 4. Old military guy, Army, this is a Navy admiral, first flag officer I actually love World War II and finding where the women actually built the bombs, beans, and bullets for the guys that were overseas during the war. I think Rosie the Riveter's cool. Actually went to Riveter's last night and ate dinner, just looking around thinking about what happened when the women stood up in America and started supporting the men that were overseas. It's really cool. But Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, she actually built the Cobalt system that the Navy still uses today. That's the computer system to track all the warships and inventory. But she said this, and I'm telling you, you need to own this if you're a leader. Don't try to manage people. You manage things, you lead people. In society today, we say, who's leading the project? No, who's managing the project? Who's leading the team? Again, I put this slide up here before. You got to think as a leader, you got to think differently. BCAC, what's left behind is left behind. How you lead now. Because what you're going to see in these statistics, which are mental illness statistics, these people are in the workforce working for you. 20% of adults. Serious, 1 in 25. 70% abusing illicit drugs in the workforce are employed in America. So you have people in your employment today, in this room, if you own a company, that have mental illness, that have serious mental illness, and are addicted to drugs. Where's Doc at? Doc, come on. Listen to this. Come here. No. That's my Doc. I told him, I said, Doc, man, you're going to talk tomorrow. Come here. I love my brother here. Just met him. But one thing I know, to be a leader, you got to care about people, and you got to care so deeply it hurts sometimes. Yes. And you got to carry that as a leader. Yes. Today in America, and these are national statistics right here in America, spending on education versus incarceration. $14,840 on a pupil, $45,771 on an incarceration. 40 states spend more on incarceration than they do education. Folks, that's wrong. What the Hill Conference is doing and why Douglas and I became involved in this as quickly as we did, I like to rethink how we're doing things. Write that word down, rethink. That means you can't do what you've always done, because if you do, you're always going to get what you always got. That's true. You got to rethink it. And it starts with gentlemen like this that have been sent to the system but got out of the system. But I'm here to tell you, 1 in 4 that go into the system, get out of the system, go right back into the system because they don't know how to function in society. And society doesn't give them an ability to integrate back into society. Thanks, Doc. So in my root cause analysis, I studied all the way back to the Roman Empire and found there's 4 key pillars of society. There's business, government, faith, and family. Those 4 pillars exist throughout society. And then I started researching the 247 years America's been in existence and realized that for the first time in history after COVID, remember AC? Those 4 pillars are all crumbling at the same time. It's the first time in history that you can put data to 2 of the 4 may have been crumbling, 3 of the 4, but the first time in history where statistically all 4 of those pillars are crumbling beneath our feet. People ask me as I travel all over, John, what's the one thing this country needs? What's one thing this world needs? I say leadership. It's needed at every level of every pillar we have in society. And it has to be humble leadership. It has to be servant leadership. It is authentic. Somebody say authentic. So what's the solution? Because You can't, we can identify, we're good at Monday morning quarterbacking. I'm telling you, we're some of the best in the world. And man, we can tell somebody what's wrong. But trying to come up with a solution that's identifiable and embraceable, yeah, we're not that good at that. But we can talk about it. And man, with social media made everyone, listen, I say when that gorilla got shot in Cincinnati, everybody the next day became a zoologist. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I'm like, how many people? I didn't know that many people that I were friends with on Facebook knew that much about chimpanzees and children and all that. I mean, it was nuts. So this may seem simple. There are simple solutions I've heard here that just don't get embraced. But let me tell you a key point of leadership is self-awareness. Now know who you are. Know who you are. Be able to look in the mirror this morning and say, this is who I am, and be real with yourself. We are good at lying to ourselves. Man gracious. Woo. Then do self-reflection. Reflect back like, all right, why do I react like I do? Why when somebody does this to me, do I feel like I'm boiling inside? Because there's triggers that are going on inside of you. And then when you do that self-awareness and that self-reflection, watch self-improvement start taking place. Why did we call it First Lead You? Because as a leader, the first thing you need to do is learn to lead yourself first. And you see that's kind of got a university type look to the logo. I don't know if y'all noticed that. It does, because we need authentic leadership training in America. We need it in the world. I think we have put this thing on autopilot thinking it's going to work, and it ain't working. There's a bunch of leaders with elephants on their chest every day in the business place. So how do you develop a culture? Now, we call what we do culture of care when we go into corporations. Culture of care. Because if you're a leader, don't care about your people, then just remove yourself from the job. Recently, I went into a corporation, very, very large corporation. And the controller for that corporation, who had 21 people in the accounting department, said, I don't care about my people. Said, I don't care. And he said, and the company's not going to make me care about them. That's what he said. And I said, well, here's what you need to learn if you're going to stay at this company, because the company's embracing, after COVID, this culture of care, because they know it's changed. We can no longer do the hammer nails. You got to have empathy, humility, concern to be a true leader. You got to have mental strength, self-awareness. And one of the things I think is extremely important for self-development, I use this every day with my teams, journal your pauses. Write that. If you've got something to write down on, journal your pauses. When something's going on in your world from a leadership standpoint, and it makes you pause, there's a reason you're pausing. Most of the time it's a wound that happened early in your childhood. I do a lot of early childhood development, 0 to 5. There's a lot of trauma that goes on in people's lives, 0 to 5, 6 to 10. Something that's going on with you when you're in your 30s or 40s happened years ago, and it's causing you not to be the leader you need to be. Now you can create trust. If you do these things, you create trust, engagement, connectedness. In this room, we didn't know each other on Friday. I started listening and watching. I'm a watcher. I listened to laughter. I listen to conversations. I watch conversations. I watch people get to know each other in just a short amount of time. There will be things that come out of this conference that will move the needle on some things. There will be. And then the second one, there'll be more that moved. Now you have mentally healthy teams when you do these things. And that should be the goal of any leader, to create mentally healthy teams, because guess what? I'm not just talking about at the workplace. I'm talking about when you go to the house. You should be mentally healthy. When you go home and deal with your family, don't take work home with you. Do not go home with your kids. And I'm telling you, you want to get an old Army guy mad, take your work out on your kids, and you're going to make me mad. They didn't ask to be brought into the world and you not deal with your stress, and so you get to be the brunt, they get to be the brunt end of it. Ain't happening. That's what we say down south. Again, I've got this riddle throughout. Get your mindset before COVID, after COVID. In America, we love working out. Matter of fact, January the 1st, there's 115,047 places in America you can go work out. And you can get physically fit. Oh, don't steal my thunder. And I'm thinking, man, we're all about getting physically fit. But we don't want to talk about getting mentally fit. We don't want to talk about it. We'll spend $35 billion a year trying to get physically fit. That's a B. And we've got apps. We've got things we can do. But we don't have, like, what if we spent 50 cents of every dollar on our mental health as we spent on our physical health? One of the things that we talk about at First Lead You is mentally healthy teams, mentally healthy leaders, emotional intelligence. We get you past those blocks, those pauses that are causing you not to be the leader you need to be. Because how do you find those leaders? So in the military, anybody, I didn't ask the question, any prior service people in the room? Okay, so parents of, okay, good, thank you. Thank you for being a parent of. There's an ASVAB test that you take when you go in the military. I went in the military, how am I doing? I got 5 minutes. I went in the military on a dare by a buddy of mine. It's true. And I took the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. It's the most utilized battery of tests in the world, not in America, in the world. So I took that test, and in the military, it tells the military, this is where this person fits in this big machine. And it works. So I go out, I come out, start a company, risk management. I'm like, where's our ASVAB test for the civilian side? Wasn't one. So we've created a battery of assessments, and I know there's 2,500 of them out there, but I've used a lot of them, and I've come down to these 3 help me start framing a reference around someone's emotional intelligence, who they are, what their personality trait is, what their working genius is, to put them in the right seat. And I use the description of the position and those 3 assessments to say, does this person fit? You can read as many books as you like, but if you're unable to read them, read yourself, you'll never learn a thing. Whoo. Because leaders didn't lead, 43 million people in America resigned. $87 billion a year is spent on professional development in companies. $2 billion are spent bringing people in to pump up the volume of that training. Yet, that same year, those statistics, that was 2021, $7 trillion was lost on productivity due to a disengaged workforce. If you sat down and counted from 1 to a trillion, and it was 7 days a week, 365 days for 24 hours, it would take you 31,600 years to count to a trillion. We're losing $7 trillion of lost productivity because we don't have the right people in the right seat in leadership, and so we have a disengaged workforce. Do you use a selection process to find your people, or do you use a hiring process? Hiring process is old school. Selection process is new. Use assessments, personality traits, job function alignments. You're selected for competence. The hiring process is resume, feeling, your nice and pleasant background. You meet qualifications. You're selected for convenience. That's old school. Were you put in a position as a leader, or do you know someone that was put in a position as a leader out of convenience or competence? Too many times leaders quickly throw somebody in a position, oh man, they're a great salesperson, they'd be a great sales manager. No, being able to sell something doesn't mean you can lead people. The convenient leader, pulled from the bottom 90, low trust with a team, regularly exhibits low emotional intelligence, poor communication, and inconsistency at the decision making. You know that leader that you come and ask to make a decision, they just stand and stare at you. They don't know what to do. Competent leader, part of the top 10, highly trusted, regularly exhibit good character, effective communication, consistency under pressure. If it's competence versus convenience, convenience is what's put us in this situation. Now the rest of the story. I'm going to go just a tad over. That drill sergeant came to me. I was pushing that concrete up, sweat pouring off me, first day of basic training. My intent was to be the first one out the door, 330 people. I was going to be the leader. 2 days before, in processing, he said almost hourly, don't walk on my floor with your boots on. Because when you walk on my floor with your boots on, it scars my floor, and I don't like my floor scarred. I, in my infinite wisdom, didn't sleep under the covers, had my uniform laid out. When that garbage can started getting beat at 4:30, I threw on my uniform, my boots, and I ran out the door, and there he stood. And there I stood. And I pushed up the concrete while everyone was walking by me with their boots in their hands. After he told me to recover, he said, take your boots off, walk 100 feet to the hallway. I was on the 3rd floor of a 4-story building. Put my boots back on, walked outside, and 329 people were doing push-ups. Because Private Ballinger decided he didn't want to listen to the drill sergeant. That day, I knew that I had failed my team. I failed myself. I didn't listen to the drill sergeant. And I mean, it ate me alive all day long. And I thought, how do I recover from what I had done, failing my team and failing my drill sergeant? So the next day, through the day, I thought about what was going on, and I went to basic training in Fort Dix, New Jersey in the wintertime, and you got some oversized green socks that were supposed to be for cold weather. And I decided I was going to put a pair of those socks over my boots that were on my feet. And so I did. And I walked outside, and I was the first one out. He looked at me, I looked at him, he looked down at my feet, and he ever so slight grin on his face as I walked by him to the stairwell. Took those socks off and put them in my pocket. Through the cycle, 5 days after that, he made me a squad leader. 2 weeks after that, he made him a platoon leader. And at the end of the 10 weeks, after many people in the unit had put their green socks in their pockets like me, Drill Sergeant Bird came up behind me and said, hey, Ballinger, he said, you know that first day when I made you grow grass with concrete? And I said, yes. He said, I knew you were going to be a leader because one day later, you come up with a solution to your problem and you got your team to follow you. That's my challenge to you as leaders. When you make a mistake, you're going to make them. Own them. Fix them. Go to your team and admit it. And then continue moving forward. And if you want to learn more about how to do that, please come and see Douglas and I.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Let's give John one more round of applause. Thank you for all the gems you dropped today, John, and just for affirming that this is a room full of potential, possibilities, and so much more to come.